This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. Alpha Natural Resources, an energy company dedicated to respecting the land. Alpha Natural Resources, we power the world through the energy of our people. Haley Buick GMC, the place for a new Verano or Terrain Denali, in Richmond and online at haleybuickgmc.com. Everywhere there are lighting poles, there's one more opportunity to save money. Intelligent Illuminations provides cost-effective wireless lighting solutions for roadway or area outdoor lights. Kanawha Valley Arena, Virginia's cowboy town, hosting an array of events from Civil War reenactments to diesel truck pulls. More information online at virginiarodeo.com. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. So what do you do? Information about getting involved in advanced technology careers, making everything from clean energy to life-saving medicine, is available at dreamitdoitvirginia.com. Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.
Welcome to This Week in Richmond, and we have a very special and unique show for our viewers today. Appreciate you two gentlemen being here. Wayne Adkins, who's the Assistant Chief of the Chickahominy Tribe, John Barton, General Minister, Virginia Council of Churches. And we want to start off right at the beginning talking about recognition of Virginia's tribes, something that in talking with you I think has been attempted since the 1920s.
Exactly.
And is still going on. So bring our viewers sort of up to date as to where are we in the process and what is happening in Washington.
Okay. To go back, I guess, to where we originally started, over 100 years ago, we were looking at ways to achieve recognition and weren't quite sure how to do it. So as we continued to study it, we started in 1999, decided to go the legislative route. And so we have introduced legislation in Congress to recognize 6 tribes in Virginia. And as you know, Congress runs in 2-year sessions, so any progress you make during that session, you have to start over from scratch. So this is actually the first year of this session. We've introduced the legislation in both the House and the Senate. We are working primarily in the Senate right now. We've had a hearing in front of the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs on the bill, and the next step would be for them to mark it up so that it could go forward for a full vote in the Senate on the floor.
And you say there's some tribal records that show that some of your predecessors, the chief, were talking about this in the 1920s.
Exactly. Looking at minutes from the tribal meetings, and particularly the Chickahominy tribe, the chief and the members were talking about it then. And the unfortunate thing is we don't know exactly what they were talking about other than the minutes say the chief gave a talk on federal recognition. So we don't know if he was talking about what federal recognition is or if he was talking about ways to achieve federal recognition. We just don't know. But that's for the Chickahominy tribe, and I know many of the other tribes in Virginia have been discussing it for at least that long.
And it was back in that same era, was it not, that citizenship came about?
Roughly in the same time period, in 1924, the Congress passed a law to make Indians citizens of the United States. A lot of people find that weird, I guess, because we're always residents of the United States, but there was a special act passed to actually make us citizens, and so that was the one thing that was happening nationwide. But then in Virginia, the Racial Integrity Act was passed, which actually worked against tribes. So we had this kind of tension between the federal law and the state laws as far as Indians were concerned.
Tell us some more. John, you entered the conversation too about that Racial Integrity Act, a really dark part of Virginia's history.
Yeah, it was. It basically declared that there are two kinds of people in Virginia. There were those that were white, declared white, and they basically had the power and the control and the resources, and then there was everybody else, the colors. And so they were all lopped into one category, which meant that if you were something other, you couldn't declare that. It was against the law. So if you were an Indian, you couldn't declare, you couldn't see it on your birth certificate because that category didn't exist. And that would be true if there were Asian population or other ethnic groups in the Commonwealth. So that we just basically lumped everybody together in a category and said, you're second class or third class or fourth class citizens of the Commonwealth.
Would I be right in saying, if not, you two correct me, that here in the state legislature in Virginia, there's a different point of view than there was in the 1920s, obviously, that there's a change, but when you think about what's happening or not happening in Washington, it's just been a long and a continuous, still going on, effort to try to get the federal recognition. I think in Virginia we have, I don't know if it was an official apology or what we've done, but for that time period, that
there has been, I think, some significant efforts in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and there's been some, I think, advances on the federal level as
good,
well.
Good.
But there's a different attitude towards. We're looking at just it's an accident of history. The last violent conflict that Virginia tribes have with the colonial exchange is in 1677. That's the last peace treaty. And so long before the United States is established, 100 years before, these tribes had already made peace with these white European settlers and done that. And so when the United States comes into creation, that treaty is never passed on to the federal government. So it's recognized by Great Britain, England, but it's not recognized by the United States. And it's just a flaw of history, and that's why we've been seeking to correct it. And the Council of Churches has been very supportive of the tribes. We've walked this journey with them for 14 years. When I shared in my testimony in 2002 on behalf of the tribes, I offered an apology at that point in time on behalf of the churches, and I said, we're here for the long haul. We're not just here for this moment. And I think we've tried very hard to be faithful with that, to let our brothers and sisters know that have walked on this ground for some 20,000 years, that we support their effort, and it's not just their struggle or their claim or right, but it is important too and the right, and something all Virginians care about, and particularly the churches, and we want to see this miscarriage of history corrected.
If you set it in context of the entire 50 states, most of the states, tribes have recognition, is that right? Are we among the few remaining ones where that hasn't occurred?
I would say most states have recognized tribes, but there are other tribes that have not been recognized. So they are kind of in the same situation we are. But officially there are 566 officially recognized tribes, and none of them are in Virginia. And most people that I talk to, longtime Virginians, we all love our history and are proud of where we came from. And when we mention the fact that those tribes that helped the settlers survive at Jamestown do not have the same standing as 566 other tribes in the country, it's just, they're dumbfounded by it. People actually stand there sometimes with their mouths open, like they just can't believe that we have not received that same recognition that these 566 other tribes have.
Yeah, I would imagine there are viewers that are saying, have their mouths open as you hear you talk today.
I mean, it really is an irony when you think some of the most famous stories of encounters between the Europeans and natives were Virginia Indians. And yet Virginia Indians are not recognized, even though they're still here. But almost every school child in the nation can tell you about Pocahontas and John Smith. And these are Virginia tribes. They're still here. They've been here. They were here long before anybody else arrived, and it's high time. It needs to be done.
And there's definitely been a shift, as you said, in the approach from the Virginia government in particular. And I think a lot of that started with official recognition by the state in 1983. Up until that time, I guess it's one of those things we considered ourselves to be recognized, and the state knew who we were, but we never really had anything that said we were officially recognized. And so there was legislation passed in the state in 1983 and then 85, and I believe in 89, to recognize 8 tribes. And so that was actually the start, I think, of things turning around with a better relationship with the state government. And then when we started discussing federal recognition, the General Assembly passed a joint resolution supporting our recognition. And since that time, we have gotten letters of support from all of the living Virginia governors. And so the tide has definitely turned in a different direction for us.
And when George Allen was governor, he issued a couple of executive orders, and the General Assembly took some steps to correct some of the records that had been systematically destroyed by the state of Virginia. And so he took some steps to help see that that happened. And so there have been efforts, even though there's still big gaps, because for most of the 20th century, Virginia tried to eliminate our tribes on paper, eliminate all of their records. And it's taking a while to recreate that and retrace that and be able to redocument that.
So what's the prospects? Is it, it's hard, I'm sure, to predict, but you've had success in the House of Representatives before?
We have, and we passed the House 2 times, I believe it is, and of course that means nothing right now because you have to start over again every time. We've never been able to get through the Senate, and so that is our major effort right now, is to pass through the Senate. I'm reluctant to say what I think the prospects are because I've been very hopeful before and we didn't get through, but I'm feeling that our chances are better than ever right now because we have Senator Kane, who is on our side. And if you could see the hearing that we had a couple of weeks ago in front of the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs, he was very, very animated and very much supportive of recognition. And so if anything's going to make the difference, I believe it's that stalwart support from Senator Kane. He is very much behind recognizing the tribes. He was a good friend of the tribes when he was governor, and that relationship has carried on. So that's the one thing, I guess, that gives me more hope than what we've had in the past. And otherwise, it's kind of like the same process all over again.
It's like being stuck in the movie Groundhog Day.
Yes, yes. I think John was asking you before that we started taping the show how many times you'd made the trip to Washington, and your answer was?
I would guess well over 100 times. It's hard to say because just about any time the group goes to D.C., I turn out to be the designated driver, I guess. And then I also serve as the president of the group that's working for federal recognition, so I generally would go anyway, so I end up driving. But we've gone numerous times for hearings, markups, meeting individual legislators in their offices. We've been to general hearings on recognition in just of itself, not just of Virginia tribes, but the whole recognition process and what should, maybe things that should be addressed to make it better. So I would say easily over 100 times we've made that trip up 95.
So you've heard all kinds of arguments, I'm sure. And what if we had someone else sitting here who opposes this? What would they be saying? Why would you oppose the recognition?
There's any number of reasons why people oppose it, and depending on what part of the country they're from or what their political feelings are, I guess. We've had various reasons. The most recent, I guess, is people think that Congress shouldn't recognize tribes, that we should be going through the Bureau of Indian Affairs process, even though Congress has recognized over 90% of the tribes that have been recognized. Some people think that tribal recognition is an outmoded, outdated form of thinking, They think that we should all assimilate, forget our tribal identities and where we come from and who we are. And we have that argument. Sometimes it comes down to money. People are afraid that recognizing us will allow us to participate in federal programs that we're not in now, and that will add to the federal budget, and they don't want to do that. And I can understand that as a taxpayer. I don't want to see the deficit grow any more than what it has. But so and there's any number of reasons. For a long time there was a concern that we would try to set up casinos and other forms of gaming in the state, and so we fought a long time to try to overcome that hurdle, and finally have. And so that helped us to go to the next roadblock. But those are the primary reasons I hear right now. And one thing I always say is recognition of Virginia tribes on the priority list is fairly low when you talk about Hurricane Katrina and 9/11 in New York and several Gulf Wars. And there's always something that overshadows any form of recognition for Virginia tribes. And so that's where we have to depend on our legislators to make the case for us, because it will never be a priority as far as most states are concerned.
On the budget piece, recognizing the tribes does not automatically mean that there's an increase in the budget. And I think that's where one of the red flags is, because each one of those appropriations is voted separately depending on the department. And so those are separate acts of Congress that have to be done. And that is done for all of Indian country, not just Virginia tribes.
Well, very much appreciate the two of you being on This Week in Richmond. We're going to have another segment, a young fifth grader and his mother talking about the tribes here in Virginia. But Assistant Chief Adkins, thank you so much. John Barton, thank you. Thank you for helping to inform our viewers about what's happening and what is yet to happen.
We thank you for the opportunity to do that, because we look forward to any opportunity to address particularly the complete state of Virginia and anyone else who may be listening. So we thank you for that.
As we welcome our viewers back, we want to extend a very special welcome to a young star and his mother, because he's been filmed a great deal, and we really appreciate your being here with us. Keenan, Stewart, and his mother, Tanya, both members of the Chickahominy tribe. Tell us something about, if you would, about you're in the 5th grade?
Yes, sir.
Charles City County Schools?
Yes, sir.
So how did you get chosen to do this particular video about the tribes?
Well, I was drumming with my drum group, Turtle Clan, and we were at an event, and Miss Betsy Barton, she saw me drumming, and she wanted to see if I wanted to do the video.
Oh, that's nice. You know, she's the one that sent me this dream catcher too, Betsy
Cool.
Barton. She's really helped us with this program from the Department of Education. You know, we're going to show in just a minute our viewers the opening part of that video that you're in. But before we show it, though, I need to let people know that this Meet the Tribes video was produced for the Department of Education by Prince William County Public Schools. And they did it with assistance from the Department of Historic Resources, the Virginia Foundation for the Humanities, the PNC Foundation, the Rotary District 7610 of Rotary International, Bachman Aviation, Alina Ellis. They had all those people helping to support this about 25-minute video. And we'll put up on the screen after the video where people can go and see it in its entirety. But right now we're going to ask our friends here at the studio to show the viewers the first portion of that, about a couple of minutes of it. And we'll be able to see it on the monitor here.
The Then in 1658, the Virginia General Assembly established the Mattaponi Indian Reservation, and the tribe still lives there today. Yes, Stella.
You mean that there's Native Americans alive in Virginia?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, like me.
What? You don't look Native, and you live like 2 houses over from me.
Della, not all Virginia Indians live on reservations or wear ceremonial clothes. Keenan is actually a member of the Chickahominy tribe.
Really? So right now there's more than one tribe in Virginia?
Yeah, right now there are 11 different Virginia Indian tribes recognized by the state of Virginia. There's my tribe, the Chickahominy, and the Eastern Chickahominy. There's also the Mattaponi, the Pamunkey, the Rappahannock, the Upper Mattaponi, the Nansemond, the Monacan Indian Nation, the Cherokee-Nottoway, the Nottoway of Virginia, and the Patawomic.
Wow, I'll never remember all those names.
But now you know there are a lot of us.
Okay, but aren't all the tribes pretty much the same?
Well, even though all Virginia Indians have some similar beliefs and histories, each tribe has their own cultures and traditions. No two are the same.
Okay, that was just a teaser, because that's what I would call it, a preview or a teaser, because there's another 20+ minutes in which you talk, and there's some good footage on there of the different tribal activities, and so we'll make sure, in fact, we'll get up on the screen now the link where people can go and find the video in its entirety. So, Mom, you've got to be proud of this young man.
Oh, yes, sir. Very, very
Yes,
proud.
yes, he has done an excellent job.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we're very pleased, and thought he did just a wonderful job.
Yes, and you've bound to have enjoyed it a great deal, because you did a good job on that video.
Thank you.
You did. Now, I was asking you before we started, you got all those bracelets on. They've got to have some special meaning. Any of them you want to tell our viewers about?
Not really. I have a few. Well, I have one. This is for my cousin that he died in a car accident.
Oh, yeah.
It's in memory of him.
Yeah,
That's one of mine.
yeah, yes. Well, so your classmates, now, they didn't know that much about Chickahominy tribe or the other tribes, did they? Until you helped tell them about them?
No, sir. They just knew a little bit about them since we're around that area.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that this effort to help educate, and what the Department of Education has done with that video, will be extremely, extremely helpful. It will.
Yes, sir. Hopefully it will just be able to get some more information out about just Virginia Indians, period. You know, that we're still around, and just to tell our story.
Yeah. We were talking in the opening segment about the need for federal recognition, and hopefully even this educational video will help people recognize too that there's still work to be done in Washington for federal recognition.
Yes, sir.
Now, what else would you want to tell our viewers? Would you want to tell them some of what they'll find in the rest of that video? What else would you tell them, Keenan?
Well, you would learn a little bit about each tribe, the Chickahominy and the Eastern Chickahominy, all the tribes in Virginia, and you just learn. It's just a little recap about all of them.
And that most of them are not on reservations.
Only a few.
Yeah. Yeah. And the effort to do this, what about, you think it would be helpful for not just the school children, but for us older Virginians as well?
Oh, yes, sir. I think so. Just to get the correct information out there. So many stories and all been told over the years of just the incorrect information, and you know, I'm just glad that with this, you know, he's able to touch everybody, not just, you know, the fourth graders for the SOL requirements, but just for everyone in general.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning the SOL part, because that's something that our this young fifth grader in his class are helping with the fourth graders too. This will be very helpful. And I think you said that there are school teachers around the state that are making use of this.
Yes, sir. They sure are.
Well, thank you very much for taking this time away from school to come up here and help our viewers, and you too, his mom, Tanya, for bringing him.
sir.
And we really hope that even if the people can catch the dream, and the dream being knowing more about our neighbors throughout Virginia, the Indian tribes, and certainly working together to see that there's proper federal recognition too that occurs with the tribes.
Yes, sir.
So thank you both for being on This Week in Richmond.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. Alpha Natural Resources, an energy company dedicated to respecting the land. Alpha Natural Resources, we power the world through the energy of our people. Haley Buick GMC, the place for a new Verano or Terrain Denali, in Richmond and online at haleybuickgmc.com. Everywhere there are lighting poles, there's one more opportunity to save money. Intelligent Illuminations provides cost-effective wireless lighting solutions for roadway or area outdoor lights. Kanawha Valley Arena, Virginia's cowboy town, hosting an array of events from Civil War reenactments to diesel truck pulls. More information online at virginiarodeo.com. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. So what do you do? Information about getting involved in advanced technology careers, making everything from clean energy to life-saving medicine, is available at dreamitdoitvirginia.com. Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.